I'm ostensibly on vacation, and as you can see, I'm taping this commentary through my computer, and I'm a complete techno-peasant. I haven't the faintest idea what will emerge, but please bear with me. I have 4 items to cover. First, because of the sad, sad death of Nelson Mandela, I wasn't able to deal with the replenishment conference for the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, the conference held in Washington earlier this month. The Global Fund had asked for a minimum of $15 billion over the next 3 years, and all they were able to summon from the rich countries of the world was a total of $12 billion. It was an unmitigated disaster. As Jeffrey Sachs, the economist, has said, asking for $5 billion a year is like asking for chump change. But indeed, the $15 billion, let alone the 12 that was received, were in total a vast underestimate, because in truth they were based on early figures from the World Health Organization. But when the World Health Organization issued new guidelines in the middle of this year, they said that an additional 13 to 14 million people should be added to the rolls of those who required immediate treatment for HIV and AIDS, and that made the $15 billion figure an absolute travesty. But still, the Global Fund bureaucrats had to go into spin doctor mode and describe the wondrous accomplishments. As a matter of fact, the head of the Global Fund even said it was a replenishment of hope, an uplifting of the human spirit. My God, talk about hyperbole, and you will have to concede I'm an expert in hyperbole. I'm reminded of that Welsh politician, Nye Bevan, who once said about these bureaucratic apologists, they reminded him of, quote, desiccated calculating machines. If you want to see the arithmetic fantasies, go to our website. Our researcher has put it together chapter and verse. Second, this is the tragic anniversary of that terrible rape and murder of the young woman on the bus in Delhi last December. You will note that 4 of the rapists have been sentenced to death. There was a commission of inquiry. The commission made a number of recommendations. Several of the recommendations were incorporated by Parliament. There was outrage across the country of India, primarily from activist women's groups. But note, in the first 10 months of this year, there have been almost twice as many reported rapes as in all of last year. And as everyone knows, the reported rapes are invariably a tiny fraction of the episodes of sexual violence. It makes one feel as though it will be an eternity before the men of India relinquish their predatory sexual entitlement. And that leads me to the third point. As I was about to tape this commentary, there came across the screen the announcement that in Uganda, that odious, repugnant, horrific bill against homosexuality had been passed. A bill which mandates life imprisonment for homosexual acts. I think that the only way to deal with it now is not so much to threaten punitive financial impositions, but for all of the major leaders of the world to get on the phone with President Museveni and tell him not to sign the bill. And that includes, above all, the executive director of UNAIDS, Michel Sidibe, and the heads of UNDP, indeed, the Secretary General of the United Nations himself, in order to persuade President Museveni that if he signs the bill, Uganda will become an international human rights pariah. And finally, something I've dealt with before, ending the year with now, the whole question of global warming and climate change, and the way in which the discharge of carbon spreads disease, frequently through migrating mosquitoes of all things. And now, not only is it malaria in question, but dengue fever, which is transmitted by particular mosquitoes, has spread, believe it or not, to Florida, Texas, and dengue fever-carrying mosquitoes have been found in California. Dengue fever is a debilitating condition causing much pain and suffering, and in 2 to 3% of the cases actually causing death. Something has to be done about climate change. And in fact, perhaps I can create a symmetry in this particular commentary. I started with the Global Fund. Let me add that the Bill Gates Foundation contributed $500 million to the Global Fund, while maintaining $1 billion of investment in Exxon and BP. Fascinating, isn't it? $500 million to fight disease, $1 billion to companies that spread disease. And because it's Bill Gates, he never has to explain the nauseating and indefensible contradiction. That was last week. You'll understand if I say there won't be a commentary next week, but I shall rejoin you in early January. I'm Stephen Lewis.